Hi, today I've been thinking about my Bible and thinking about some stories from the Bible, and I wanted to just talk specifically about behavioral psychology and the fight or flight response and how people handle conflict. And there's three stories that I wanted to go over in the Bible, and they illustrate the three types of response to conflict. So the Bible is considered to be the never ending story of God, right? And so there's lots of conflict within the Bible over and over again. So we see this situation where we have over and over again, we have a lot of circumstances where there's people that used to be best friends. Maybe they were brothers or they were sisters with each other. They had a tight bond with each other, and then something happened that caused a rift or a wedge between them. Often it was driven by possibly God Himself to create the conflict between the two of them. And then we see the response that each one takes. So we begin with the story of Cain and Abel, right? And then in this one, we see the fight response. So there's three responses in behavioral psychology. There's a fight, flight, or freeze. So Cain, what he does, he's the farmer, right? And his brother is the sheep herder, and his brother brings his firstborn of his flock to God. They're competing against each other, right? To see which one God favors more. And God favors Abel because of the meat that he provides. Now, Cain is a farmer, and he's maybe even like vegetarian or a vegan, and he probably doesn't think it's right to kill animals or whatever. So maybe he rationalizes that he doesn't think that his brother's really that great of a person anyways. So what happens is that we see that the two brothers eventually start to butt heads with each other, and then you develop this jealousy and this envy with each other, and then the resentment builds up, and then before you know it, Cain the farmer ends up killing Abel. So that's the fight response. So as we can see clearly, Cain becomes like the ultimate villain for everybody, the one that murders his own brother, and his story has gone on throughout history. It's kind of a smear campaign against the guy that he did something really awful, which he did. He did do something really awful, but God kind of set that situation up between the two of them. So, um, you know, when you have somebody that's always rewarded and the other person is left out in the cold over and over again, eventually you're going to have some kind of buildup of resentment going on and some kind of stain of feeling like you've been mistreated and haven't been treated fairly in a situation. So, of course, he acted inappropriately in that situation with the fight response, but it is one of those three choices, right? So then we have another story which shows the flight response, and that's a story between Esau and Jacob. So you hear the phrase, Jacob have I loved, Esau have I hated, right? In this story, you have a mother that's a bit of a narcissistic parent when you think about it, pitting two brothers against each other that probably loved each other a lot. And Jacob ends up stealing the inheritance based on what his mother tells him to do, right? So, and then Esau probably decides at that point that dynamic, that family dynamic, is a bit toxic for him, and so he wants to remove himself from it. So he ends up leaving that area and he establishes his own civilization, right? His civilization goes on to, he doesn't really ever, I don't think he ever really lets go of the anger of what happened though, because his descendants become the Amalekites who attack the Israelites, right, as soon as they leave Egypt. And then later on, his other descendants are considered to be the Greeks and the Romans who over and over attack Israel again and again and again. So I don't think that there's ever any like resolution to the conflict between Jacob and Esau, and that he probably lived a difficult life, always having this anger and resentment built up. Other than that, you have the freeze response. So you have a story of like the man at the pool of Bethesda, right? So this guy, he's been at the pool for 38 years, kind of frozen in place. He's trying to get the reward at the pool of Bethesda, right? He wants to earn the reward, and he wants the miracle, and he wants to finally be freed of his disabilities. But he has to wait because of these arbitrary rules that the Pharisees set for him. So he never really does escape that until Jesus shows up, a stranger from the outside, and frees him from that situation. So freeze response can work too, but you have to wait a very, very long time, and it's not for the faint of heart. It's a difficult situation to be in, I imagine. And I'm certain after that man did pick up his mat, he probably left that community and never came back. So it might have been a combination of freeze and flight as well. So really, when you look at those three stories, you see clearly that the fight response is not going to work, and it will actually create you as a villain for the rest of time in the never-ending story, just like Cain, right? And then you have the flight response, which does technically work, but you don't really ever release that anger, so you have to deal with that pain all your life, and then it does kind of transfer down to your descendants, right? So I'm not sure that that really works either. And then you also have the freeze response, which probably combines with the flight as well, which does work, but you have to wait like 30-40 years. So anyways, I just wanted to cover that in the Bible, how there's three choices that you can make: to fight, flight, or freeze, when you have a conflict situation, and just think it through and decide which one's the best fit for you. So thank you for listening. Have a good day.